everyone, and welcome to another episode of From No Crypto to No Crypto. I'm your host, Crypto Coach, Blockchain Wayne. Today we're joined by Michael Pearl with Cyvers. Michael, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Blockchain Wayne. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Pleasure to have you on. Love to share more about what you guys are doing at Cyvers, but before we jump into that, can you tell us a little bit about your background and a little bit about what you've done both in this space and prior to, if there's anything prior to that?
I'm Michael Pearl. I'm 40 years old. Currently, I'm the VP Go-to-Market Strategy at Cyvers. All in all, I have more than a decade in the crypto industry and the fintech industry, mostly in executive positions. I was also advising several projects. I think I remember all the crypto waves, the ups and downs, the ICOs, the NFTs. So basically, I've been around and would love to jump in to discuss everything.
Awesome. Yeah. So you've seen a lot of the turbulence, a lot of all the way back to Mount Gox and others, right? So kind of wish Cybers was around back then, but we'll jump into that in a second. So Cybers, let's talk about Cybers. Tell us what is Cybers and kind of the backstory behind you guys starting that company.
Cyvers is a Web3 cybersecurity company. Essentially, the idea, the premise behind the company was the fact that, again, in 2017, ICO craze days, nobody cared about security, right? Everyone were issuing white papers and calling it a company. And then when they started setting up their smart contracts and building their projects, if any, they started being hacked, right? So there were numerous incidents, millions of dollars stolen, tons of scandals, and so on. And eventually, what happened is that they became more aware. The regulators became more aware, and then the silver bullet was basically auditing. So the idea was for the listeners who are not familiar with that, basically give us your code of the smart contract that you're about to deploy. We're gonna audit it. We're gonna go through the code and search for vulnerabilities, do some maybe penetration testing, things of that sort. And if we find something, you just change it. And if we don't, then you're good to go. And then what happened is that people found out that it's not enough, right? So it might decrease the chances of you getting hacked, but it's by no means a silver bullet solution. And actually, in our data, we see that about 90% of the smart contracts that were hacked were pre-audited. So I'm not saying that people shouldn't audit. I'm just saying that it's only the first step for becoming a more secured platform, a more secured project. And on that premise, Cyvers was founded. Basically, the idea was to provide different platforms, whether it's wallets, exchanges, DeFi projects, institutionals, hedge funds, to provide them with real-time security, meaning that we're monitoring their wallets and smart contracts in real time, 24/7. And then in a split of a second, we can tell them if they're being hacked, oftentimes even before that. And we can actually talk about the preemptive measures that we have. We can even tell them that at the stage of preparation. Kind of like if you watched Minority Report with Tom Cruise, where he used to catch criminals even before they thought about committing the crime.
Right. Yeah, I did see that movie. That was a pretty interesting one. Yeah, so I mean, obviously, yeah, that makes sense because an audit's important, but technology evolves, hacker strategies evolve, so it may have been safe today, 6 months from now, could have a vulnerability. So that definitely makes sense. So, what are some of the recent hacks that you guys have seen? I know I'm amazed. I follow the Twitter feed for Cyvers, and I see some of the alerts that go out, and it's pretty alarming, right? To see what's happening, and if they're not paying attention to those, it could be a problem, or at least not responding to communication.
Sure. We have a SOC, a Security Operations Center, that basically tracks 10 different blockchains 24/7, block by block. And every time we pick something up, and again, if we know that it's a very big hack and we can attribute this to one of the companies, one of the entities, we immediately ring the bell. So usually what we do is we try to work with the companies and to try to help them to mitigate the situation. Some of the things we're publishing, and I really encourage your listeners, viewers to go and look us up on Twitter, Cybers Alerts. We also have a Telegram channel where you can pick up all the alerts, not all, like the best ones, let's say. But only recently we exclusively caught the WazirX hack, $235 million stolen. And for those of you who don't know, WazirX is one of the biggest exchanges in India. It's a household name there. I have to tell you, behind the scenes, like catching this in the morning of Thursday, I think 2 weeks ago, and the immense responsibility that we had, in publishing this, because we understand that, all the consequences that are going to happen after publishing such a thing. So we reached out to the company, tried to help them, and then when we saw that it's already out there and there is no time to stop the hack, then we published this, obviously to help the community as well to mitigate this and to see what they can do about this. Only recently, and that's again, I'm just talking about the last 2 weeks, we caught the Li-Fi hack, which is kind of a DEX aggregator that was hacked, a very sophisticated hack where essentially, just to simplify it, the hacker drained wallets that gave permission to the smart contracts.
Cool.
So it's not only breaching the smart contract and draining the smart contract, it's also draining the wallets of the users that are connected to the smart contract. We're also covering scams. So just to give you one example, about 2 months ago, we caught the biggest address poisoning in history, $68 million, one single transaction in WBTC. Ouch.
Yeah, I
Seriously.
remember hearing about that one. So you guys were able
Yeah.
to catch that person.
Yeah. And again, unfortunately, the list goes on and on, right? We're catching quite a few per day, big ones. I'm not even talking about smaller ones because until the time that we finish this podcast, there will probably be hundreds or even thousands of those in the feed that we're catching.
Yep. Yep. I've always heard, where there's gold, there's pirates, and where there's digital gold, there's going to be digital pirates.
For
Trying
sure.
to take that. And just on what you said, just in the past few minutes, it's kind of lined out a couple things just to really emphasize that I like to teach people, which one, don't leave your crypto on exchanges unless you're trading it. There should be no reason for you to just leave it on there. A centralized exchange becomes a honeypot for hackers because instead of one wallet, they may have a few thousand or 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000. They can get into a centralized exchange that has millions. And most people think, oh, well, like I'll give you an example. I'm in the US, so people would be like, oh, but I trust Coinbase. It's not just about trusting them, right? You have to trust that their security doesn't have any vulnerabilities. And that space is constantly evolving. So that's one example. I always tell people all the time to revoke permissions on their wallets, right? Whenever they connect to DEX, whenever they connect to any kind of platform and gives permissions, those permissions typically a lot of times stay open until you close it. And they don't realize that. And you think about it, right? If I connected my wallet to some places in 2018 and that company is now defunct or their smart contract hasn't been updated and now it's vulnerable, then that could drain my wallet, right? So basically removing those permissions, revoking those permissions is important. It's definitely something. And then address poisoning, right? You talk about that, and for those that are listening that may not know what address poisoning is, it's in essence. Now you can maybe tell me a little bit more about the details of when you saw, but isn't it when they are basically it's like microtransactions that are sent to a wallet to show up in address history. So it may, in some cases, may even look similar to the last address they use. So this person very rarely use that wallet, and they're like, "Oh, the last time I sent it to this address, let me just send it again," and they just hit that address, the last one in their transaction history, and thinking it's the where they're supposed to send it, and actually it's to a hacker's wallet. Is that correct?
Yeah, so to put it in simple terms, essentially, address poisoning is the idea of me tricking you to send money to a different wallet, right? Essentially, my wallet as the hacker, and eventually me draining your wallet for that money, and you don't even know that until you actually contacted the person that you wanted to send the money to, and he told you, "Listen, I didn't get it." So the way that hackers are doing that, I'm not going to go into all the technical details, but in essence, I'm sending you microtransactions, maybe with some BS tokens, or maybe even with some real like ETH tokens, but in very small amounts. And if I know that you are an active wallet and that you have enough money in it, and I do my research, right, I would want to poison your wallet. I would want to send you those fake tokens. So then your log on, let's say, Etherscan is being piled up with the address that I'm sending from. And if I'm diligent enough, I can actually create an address that looks very similar to an address that you are usually sending money to. And then 99% of the people are too lazy to create lists and whitelists and all that, and they don't use wallets that allow that and have these features. So they just go on Etherscan, they copy and they paste, and then eventually they send the money to the wrong address. And actually, I think that what I would do if I was one of your viewers or listeners, I would go to my MetaMask or any other wallet and check for all those airdrop tokens that they received, NFTs and so on. You would be surprised. Sometimes it's not malicious. It's just airdrops, but oftentimes it's not. So maybe somebody has selected you as a potential victim, and this may take some time, but eventually you can fall for that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they may poison the address early on, and it could be months or even a year before you realize it, and you're like, okay, let me send from this wallet. Right. It's important to have those whitelisted features, and also that's another reason why we do what we do at FIO, because copy and pasting wallet addresses or just selecting one that's not really human readable can be a problem, can cause issues. Send the wrong address and on the wrong chain, send to a malicious party that address poisoned you. There's also man in the middle attacks where they could alter what's been copied before you paste it, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's using a FIO handle is something that's important, because you type in that handle just like you would an email address. You type it wrong, it won't let you send it. It can stop that from happening as well. So that's just one part that we're doing, but definitely what you guys are doing is important, because security is important, and this is something that we didn't have to worry about before. When you think about financial banking institutions, yes, they're still prone to hacks, and individual accounts are prone to hacks. But it's a new technology, it's a new strategy, and people need to realize that. And especially smart contracts are designed to kind of remove some of those centralized parties, but at the same time, you got to make sure your trust is in the smart contract, that it hasn't been compromised, because you're just moving your trust from an individual to code, and code can work great as long as there's no vulnerabilities. So, what?
Yeah. Also, just to highlight like two things to piggyback on on what you said earlier. So first of all, on the preemptive level, what we do oftentimes is we work with wallets, and then we can scan all the wallets of the individuals that are holding money in those wallets. Like we will work with wallet companies, right? And then we can scan all the wallets, and we can say if one of those wallets was address poisoned, and we can issue a warning, watch out, you were address poisoning. And that's something that we do with several prominent wallets. Also, you never know, like there are things that are called like 0-day attacks, or there are many other names for that. Essentially, there are things that we don't know, right? We know what happened in the past, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. So hackers always surprise us, and there are always new ways, new vulnerabilities. So the way that our system works is that it doesn't really matter what's the origin of the attack. At the end of the day, we will catch it on chain, and we will notify you in real time. So we're not only looking, we're also looking at the root cause to be preemptive about it. But if it's something brand new that nobody has thought of or saw in the past, we will catch it in real time, and we will help you to mitigate this and to prevent the attack.
Right, and I'm sure there's a lot that can be learned from you catching a hack on one exchange, and it could, basically show some other vulnerabilities for other exchanges that you work with. Or if there's a vulnerability in a wallet, there could be other wallets. I mean, there's a lot of code sharing in this space, right? So there's well, not necessarily with exchanges, but definitely with wallets and smart contracts. So one vulnerability could lead to more. So it's important for people to pay attention to not just the company or project that may have experienced the hack or hopefully been able to prevent the hack, but similar to others, right? Doesn't matter. There's a vulnerability on a smart contract that was someone's given permission to in MetaMask, and they made to make sure other wallets that they haven't connected to as well.
Yeah, in the aftermath of the WazirX case, I know that WazirX have contacted, I think, 400 wallets, warning them, sending them their use case to learn from that, because oftentimes there's a cascading effect. And you mentioned earlier a few names. I'm not going to repeat them, but you said, like, think about like the top notch, like tier one exchanges and wallets that you're using.
Right.
All of them got hacked at some point.
Right.
Some of the things weren't public. Only lately we saw this whole debacle between Certic and Kraken, right? I mean,
Yes.
Kraken is an amazing exchange, and I'm sure that they have a very strong security team. But I'm just saying that at the end of the day, security works in many layers, right? So you cannot have too much security, right? And unfortunately, you only understand that when it's too late. So I would like, if I would have a penny for any company that we were in touch with, and we told them, listen, guys, you must have real-time monitoring, and they said, yeah, we're gonna do it. It's not on our roadmap and so on. And then they get hacked, and unfortunately, you can't do anything about it. In the WazirX case, for instance, we spotted the malicious smart contract that exploited those wallets that managed to break the multisig. We spotted this malicious smart contract 8 days before, because once it was uploaded, once it was launched, we already saw that it's a malicious smart contract. So it's like a loaded gun, looking for a victim.
Wow.
And then when this malicious smart contract met the wallet, at this exact point, we knew that WazirX were hacked. But the latency here of letting them know when they're not our clients and not setting up like automated mechanisms, it's already too late.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important you mention that because yeah, I mean these Kraken is probably one of the longest standing exchanges, right? So they're not new to the game and had had some lax security and it can happen to them. And with Xerex, as you mentioned, very familiar with probably one of the largest exchanges in India, right? Or maybe the
Mhm.
largest. I don't know. I mean, I know there's been some exchanges coming and going out of India, but definitely a big one that I'm familiar with. So yeah,
By the
so
way, Kraken is not only the one of the oldest exchanges; it's also regulated, right? And that's also something that people have to talk about. Like the SEC, Gary Gensler, they are so worried about investors being, defrauded from the securities point of view. But you can lose much more money, and much more people, much more, like, the effect of this can be much larger when you get hacked, right? So there's so many tragic articles about what's going on right now in India with people that lost their money, and I assure you that the impact of that is much bigger than some securities fraud.
right. Yeah, absolutely. We only hear about the ones like FTX and others where it may have been malicious people at the helm, but a lot more often it's people with good intentions that maybe just have a security vulnerability. So yeah. So what is the? I mean, do you know the status of the WazirX? Like, are they still operating? Are they insolvent? Are they going to reimburse users? I mean, that's quite a bit of funds, right?
Yeah, first of all, we try to help them to figure out where the funds went and to try to mitigate that, because sometimes if you have several wallets, then you can protect the others. You can quarantine the funds that you have left. Also, they're conducting investigations. We were also part of that, but I know that they're working with many other counterparties. The Indian police is involved. They offered a huge bug bounty to try to recover some of the funds. So it's still ongoing, but it's just a disaster. It's a disaster for the company. It's a disaster for the traders,
Right.
and a lesson needs to be learned here.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, um, this is all good stuff because people don't understand that security is important on all levels, right? At the individual user, you have responsibility to protect your passwords, protect your seed phrases, protect your private keys, and really any other methods like adding two-factor authentication. But sometimes all of that is not enough, and so from the individual user, you may be wondering, what do I get from this? Definitely on your wallets, revoke permissions, like on your smart contracts. Do you have any recommendation? I know of one, but do you have any recommendations if somebody wants to check the open permissions in their wallet? Do you have any recommendations of how they should go about that?
There are many services that can help you with that, and obviously MetaMask has also an add-on that you can use there to see which permissions you granted. By the way, one of the things that we did after the LiFi case, we contacted all the companies that we're in touch with, and we created a huge campaign on helping them inform their users to revoke permissions to LiFi. And I think it's a very important contribution that I'm very humbled to take part at. But on the regular basis, not only when there are hacks, you shouldn't grant permissions if you're not using the service frequently.
Right. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, um, it's very easy to add those permissions again if you want to interact with a protocol. So it should be standard practice. Another step of individual security, to where even if you're on Uniswap, revoke those permissions. Yes, I trust Uniswap. Yeah, I used them for years, right? But if they have a smart contract vulnerability that gets hacked, you could be it could be tainted to you as well, just like you mentioned with the LiFi hack. So
Yeah.
that's important. Um, and back to what I
By the
said.
way, one more thing, sorry to interrupt you. One more thing to stress here. Given the fact that smart contracts are immutable and all that, we know that. And given the fact that it's not that easy to move users from V2 to V3 and so on, users get stuck in smart contracts that were deployed years and years ago. And eventually, the hackers are becoming more sophisticated. The smart contracts that were created 5 years ago potentially can be more dangerous. And usually it's the bigger names that we hear about, with more TVL. So this is a train wreck waiting to happen.
Right. Absolutely. And I just thought of it. There was actually somebody I interviewed recently. One of our friends and our former head of marketing. She works for a company called Harpy now, HARPI, and you can easily put in your wallet address there, and it'll scan, especially the EVM chains, to let you know what permissions you should revoke. And I just say, like, even if it's something you may still be using, it's easy to add those permissions again. So just revoke them till you're ready to use it again.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Cool. All right. So, Michael, as we start to wrap up, tell us a little bit about. I know you mentioned earlier the Twitter Cybers alerts, but where else can people find out more information and follow you guys?
So again, Cyber's alerts would be the go-to place. Oftentimes, all the crypto media picks up quotes from there and always reaches out to us every time we publish something. We just opened a Telegram channel, so I would be more than happy if you guys join there because we want to interact with the community as well. We had some Twitter Spaces, and it was a lot of fun. And we really want to hear from people, what's on their mind. Maybe we're missing something. So I urge you to join that. Obviously, for the more corporate listeners, LinkedIn, you can look me up, and I also publish things frequently. That's in a nutshell.
Awesome. Yeah, make sure to go follow these guys. I know I'm already following, but I'm definitely going to add the Telegram channel as well. Telegram seems to be the hot spot for hangouts lately, especially with all the attention Telegram's getting. So definitely do that, because really security at the end of the day is everybody's responsibility. And having great tools is best, right? Being able to detect a lot of these hackers and scammers are getting more and more advanced, and it's important to not think that security is a one and done. Oh, I've set everything up, I'm good. That what was good a year ago could be very vulnerable today. So it's important to keep that going. So, Michael, any last words before we wrap up today?
Stay safe. Stay minded about security. It's not something to be taken lightly. And at the end of the day, if you and the companies that you're working with and your providers will do the minimum, I'm sure that this industry will be much, much safer. And I actually believe that, without having a secured Web3 space, we cannot really scale and we cannot reach the masses. That's one of the conditions that we need to meet in order for us to get to the masses, because when you read in the news all those horror stories, at the end of the day it deters people from joining the Web3 revolution, so to speak.
Absolutely. Cool. Michael, it's been a pleasure having you on today. Appreciate all the insight you shared. Definitely is. This is a topic that's near and dear to everybody, or should be. And I just want to thank you again for joining us today. Um,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, everybody. That's it for this episode. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode. Take care, everybody.